Morning. Boxing Day onwards is supposed to be bumper in retail, but not this year. How have the high street's been faring at the end of a roller coaster period? You look different, Roger. You wearing something new?
Sadly not.
It's a big time, though, isn't it, for retail? It's a really important period. Good morning. This time of year is often described as the golden quarter, where retailers make a large proportion of their profits. But, of course, not this year. As we end it, non-essential retail is closed in Tier 4 areas of England. Now, that covers around 40% of the population in mainland Scotland. Non-essential stores have been closed since Boxing Day, and it's similar stories in Wales and in Northern Ireland. So for lots of people, there hasn't been the option to shop. Now, Boxing Day is traditionally a massive retail event, but across the UK, the number of people visiting the shops was down hugely by 60%. Some shoppers in England in Tier 3, where non-essential retail is allowed, like in Nottingham and Leeds, they did brave the shops. It looks quite busy there, doesn't it? But a completely different story in central London, which is in Tier 4. This is spooky, isn't it? Central London, just after Christmas, almost over Christmas is up slightly. It's expected to reach about £84 billion, and that's partly because online sales have leaped by a quarter. And it's not just how we shop, but what we've been buying that's changed. Furniture retailers have struggled to keep up with demand for homeware, as so many of us have decided to make changes at home through the lockdowns. But it is a very different story in fashion. An interesting shift, and that's tough. Christmas, of course, follows a really tough year. Some big names like Mothercare and Dixon's Carphone have already gone from our high streets. Debenhams, which is currently in administration, might follow. One estimate puts the total number of retail job losses this year at over 230,000. There are some bargains to be had at the moment. John Lewis, M&S, ASOS, among those going to 50% and above in the sales. Next week, we'll find out just how unusual this trading period has been in retail. The first of the big names to release their figures will be next on Tuesday. Next, of course, one of the first big retailers to pivot towards online really successfully. And it will be interesting to see which retailers have done that and whether it's saved them or not. For some, of course, the Arcadia Group, Debenhams, it's too late. You know, I went out shopping yesterday with the kids because they got cash instead of presents from lots of relatives this year. We went to a toy shop.
Yeah.
And it was magical. And it was just a reminder, because I've not been out shopping on the high street at all over Christmas, that you can't really replace that, can you? It's a lovely thing to do.
Well, there'll be lots of people watching this morning who can't do that because the shops are closed. And I wonder about all the logistics, you know, people who shops that have got, you know, shops in London, you know, how they're managing all of that. It's so difficult for people, isn't it?
And of course, you know, Roger, you said you were out in the Trafford Centre in Manchester. For the people where it is open, it's managing that footfall when it's really busy and trying to keep safe, which all retailers are trying to do, but it's such a tricky balancing act, isn't it? Big year ahead.
It is. Nina, thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning. Boxing Day onwards is supposed to be bumper in retail, but not this year. How are the high streets faring at the end of a roller coaster period?
Morning.
Yeah, a really mixed picture, a bit like the weather this morning. Good morning. This period is described as the golden quarter, the time that retailers make a large proportion of their profits for the entire year. But, of course, this year is different because non-essential retail is closed in Tier 4 areas of England, and that covers around 40% of the entire population. In mainland Scotland, non-essential stores have been closed since Boxing Day, and it's a similar story in Wales and in Northern Ireland. So for many, there just hasn't been the option to shop. Now, what did that mean for the traditional Boxing Day sales? Well, across the UK, the number of people visiting the stores was down by around 60%. Some shoppers in England in Tier 3, where non-essential retail is allowed, like here in Nottingham and in Leeds, well, they did brave it. It looks quite busy, doesn't it, there? But a very different story in central London. I mean, these scenes from around Oxford Street, Regent Street are really unusual, aren't they, for the capital? And what is interesting is that overall spend over Christmas is up slightly. It's expected to reach about £84 billion, partly because online sales have leaped by a quarter. Is it too soon then to read into any lockdown lessons in shopping? Kate Hardcastle, to see you as ever, Kate. Happy Twixmas, my favourite week of the month. Let's start with that online shopping boom. It's cancelled out some of that reduction in footfall. Who are the winners and losers in that game? isn't it? And often they support one another. We were talking earlier about the boom in home decor, everybody sitting at home looking around and thinking, let's start with the DIY, an increase in those sales. But then we've also seen a reduction in smartware for work. Are we going to stick with those trends as we go into 2021, regardless of working from home? In there that we are still spending. In fact, we spent more over this Christmas period than we did last year, but we're just spending in a very different way. And Kate also saying some of the big brands, M&S, John Lewis, ASOS, they've already started massive sales, upwards of 50%. So there are bargains to be had.
Nina, thank you very much for keeping us company as well. Twixmas, you call it.
I love it.
And I knew
Best
you.
week of the year.
I knew
isn't
you
it?
would.
No one knows what day it is. That's the best thing.
No, exactly.
Tuesday.
Mince pies at 9
Isn't it?
a.m.
I think so.
Perfect.
Oh,